Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 426 of the Stacey West podcast. I am your host tonight, Ben, and I'm joined by Charlie. How you doing, mate? You well?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Ben. How are you on this lovely Thursday for a change evening?
Yeah, so we should clarify. I'm not too bad. Yeah, it's been a busy old day. I've been in Peterborough for work, and I got back basically. Haven't eaten, haven't done anything yet. I've literally just jumped straight in and jumped on to get the podcast ready. And now we're here talking. So, it is a little bit later than usual. The reasons for that being that Charlie has a new day job because he's obviously moved back from parts unknown, as formerly known as Gibraltar. So, that
is still known as that.
Getting settled in there and, kind of going... getting the routine sorted, and then last night we're obviously a member down at the moment. Although she is watching, Emily is currently in Sydney, loving life out there, and potentially eating her dinner on a place where she's going to eat the dinner and then abseil down a wall straight afterwards, which she sent that video to the group chat, and I was just like, absolutely not. No, I'm not doing that. We're down a member at the moment, and Chris was unavailable last night, so it would have been me talking for an hour, and I'm sure nobody wants that. So we put it back by a night. So we're live on a Thursday night instead of a Wednesday, which is a bit unusual. But it has given us a chance to listen to the pre-match press conferences at least. So there is that to go for it. So, yeah, mate, I'm all right. I'm all right. It's just been a very, very busy time. As you are well aware, you came round to mine on Saturday and you saw the current state of some of the bits of my house. So
he's basically putting a sauna in. He says it's a kitchen, but I think the idea was that it was a sauna the other day. So I don't really know what's going on. He seems to be changing his mind. I know. I also saw his setup from the other side, which is very strange. I only ever see a blurred background, and then it changed, and I got to see the full room and all of the little Lego pieces that he is blurring out in the background.
Little and very large Lego pieces.
Sorry, I shouldn't be putting them down like that. Really, should I?
Yeah,
they are very large. You must be overcompensating for something, but.
Yeah, so it was.
Rachel.
Rachel's in as well in the chat. So yeah, it's. We're currently in the middle of all that. So the house is being turned upside down, but we're nearing the end of it now. We can see the final stretch. Loads of stuff is in place now, and we're all happy. Are you happy with how things have gone with your new job? If you can talk about it, I know we.
Yeah, briefly. I'm not working for MI5, so I can.
That's what you would. That's definitely what you'd say if you were working for MI5.
It's funny. I was saying, because it's a financial services provider. Going into it, they did so many background checks that was very much the joke I made. That it's like, am I actually joining MI5 here? No, it's gone really well. Tuesday was my first day. The first day was certainly one that threw me a little bit. And I'll be honest, like settling in and trying to adjust to life back here, it's, when they say like, oh, just have a really cold shower in the morning, that'll wake you up, that'll get you ready for the day and get you set. Yeah. Apparently so does standing at the bus stop on Brant Road, absolutely freezing you off at 2 degrees at 7:30 in the morning also does the same thing. So that was certainly a bit of a settling period that I had to change to. But no, do you know what? The team seemed really nice. Really enjoyed it so far. Yesterday, the whole team went out for some food. Somebody was leaving, so they were doing like a little team lunch. Now, when I was back in gym, I'll be honest, there was a little cafe bar place just right around the corner from my office, and very regularly kind of became most lunchtimes. Me and one or two of my mates from work would go around there and have a pint. We'd take our lunch in and we'd go and have a pint. And obviously we'd go back to work. It was fine. It was a very relaxed kind of environment. So I now go into this much more kind of corporate job. It's no longer customer service like I was doing before. So we go for this team lunch. And it was at that pizza place in town, that Franco Manca. Very, very nice, by the way, on the corner by the Stone Bow. But they go around for drinks orders, and I'm first. Yeah, glass of water, please. Obviously, I'm not taking that risk. The next, my boss, large glass of rosé, please. Right, so I'm definitely going to fit in here. That literally everybody else, apart from like 2 or 3, ended up going for some form of beer or wine. I'm like, okay, now I know where the line is. That's absolutely fine. So maybe I don't need to change everything.
Good. No, that's good to hear, man. As long as you're settling back and adjusting to the weather and everything else back here in the UK, it's very good to have you back. So let's talk about some football, shall we? Because there's been not a huge amount of news out of the club this week. I think if we'd have done this last night, we would have had even less, because there was a little bit of, couple of little tidbits from the press conference today that we can at least talk about. But the first one that came out this week, Charlie Parks has joined Gainsborough Trinity on loan until January. Another one where the younger lads and the people that probably wouldn't necessarily be getting anywhere near the first team at the moment, they are out on loan to get some game time. And yeah, obviously, Charlie signed his first professional deal in the summer. Now he's got a chance to go and get some football under his belt. I say only till January, but I would probably expect to see that. I'd probably expect to see him either go out to a different club or have that extended in at the end of January. So, yeah, good news for Charlie. Hopefully, he can get a few games under his belt.
Yeah, obviously not really too much to say about that one. It's just always nice when we have got those kind of relationships with the local clubs to be able to get those loan deals done and over the line. Obviously, Gainsborough, Boston as well at the minute with one out there. So, yeah, hopefully you can kind of reap some rewards from a short loan spell and potentially could even extend that past January. We always know how these things work. They always say that it's got a January deadline, but I think that kind of just gives a little bit of protection to both us and Trinity, and we'll kind of see where it goes from there.
Yep, absolutely. So, as we say, we did have with the podcast being slightly delayed, we had the ability to watch the pre-match press conferences today, both of which really gave us a nice little hint as to something we're going to talk about a little bit later on, which is potentially the starting 11 for Saturday's game. But one thing that Michael Skubala said, obviously we mentioned last week that Oscar Thorne has undergone surgery. That surgery was successful, so he is now on the road to recovery. Michael Skubala confirmed today that Adam Jackson will be out for a few weeks, as he has also had surgery. So no real indication as to what the surgery is, but doesn't sound too major if it's potentially just a few weeks, Charlie.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you, I've not got any kind of idea on the specifics of it, but it is always a little bit worrying when there's an injury that requires surgery. It feels like it's like a step up in terms of an injury, doesn't it? Yeah. Even if it's just something small, but it always kind of adds that extra kind of level of worry in your mind. Also, they say a few weeks. What does that actually mean? Are they talking 3 or 4 weeks to be back on the grass, like what you would maybe expect a few weeks to be, or are they actually saying a few weeks is quite a while? So not 100% sure on that. But yeah, I definitely think we've lost a really key member of the squad there, of the wider squad. And I definitely think it's something that, if it's going to be much longer than January, then we may need to look at some form of a short-term replacement to that area of the squad.
Yeah, I was going to say, what do you think this means to some of the players that are currently in the squad, on the fringes? I mean, obviously, Tom Hamer has been deputising there when Jacko's not been in the squad, but then you have to look at the bench further than that.
Yeah.
Does this potentially give an avenue to come back for Lewis Montsma? Or do we think, Lewis is maybe looking, well, there might be a loan out for Lewis in January. Personally, I think this is an ideal time for Lewis to really show what he's capable of and force his way into the matchday squad, even if it's not to start. I think it would be good to see Lewis back on the bench and being a part of the squad on a match day for the league.
Yeah, like everybody loves Lewis, don't they? And I think we would all love to see him thrive again at Lincoln and be exactly what we know he can be and be exactly what he has been for us in the past. I think there's definitely a few question marks with him. He's not looked the same player in a while. Obviously, when he comes in and plays, it feels like we see him for one game week and then it's not again for another month, and then it's another game week and then not again for another month. You know what I mean? So I'm not 100% sure on what the kind of fitness level is on that, and whether that is a fitness thing or whether that is simply a squad selection point. I think it would maybe point more to it being a fitness thing, considering the lack of depth we have had on the bench in that area. If you look at Saturday, for example, the only other defender that we had on the bench was Riley Towler. Now, you can't really play, or I don't think you can really play Reach, Bradley and Towler all together. 3 left footers in a 4-back there, especially when you kind of got Tendai who can find himself up the pitch a little bit more often. I think that puts quite a big strain on the midfield. So I'm never comfortable having 3 left footers starting like that. So I think it's going to be either Lewis Montsma coming on at some point, coming into the squad and having a little bit more of a run of games, absolutely. Or it's going to be that we look to get either a free agent now or look for January. That's kind of where my mind is, just for a little bit of cover, because again, an injury that's required surgery, they've said a few weeks. He's had a few weeks until back on the grass. He's had a few weeks until back in the building. Obviously, what does that actually mean? And I think one more injury to the back line, if Tom Hamer got injured now, I think we'd be really, really struggling, and we would be more desperate to find somebody. Whereas I think at the minute we can cover off what we've got for maybe a couple of weeks, but starting to look for those early January replacements just to bolster out the squad. Like obviously you said, Tom Hamer is a fantastic step in. In fact, I would even say that he's probably the starter for this season, and he's probably in there for the best 11 for me at the moment, if everybody was fit. But again, like Hugh deputises the deputy, and I just don't know if we've really got that at the moment on that right hand side. You've got to also bear in mind, if Tendai Dariko gets injured, yes, okay, we've got Dexter Lembakisa who can come in, but his loan is only up until January. So if Tendai goes out injured, would we be looking to shift Hamer off to the right back position, and boom, we've lost another centre back? So the way that it shifted, I'm thinking that we're starting to get a little bit light in that area of the pitch, unless Lewis can now step up and be the player that we know Lewis Montsma can be in.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely opened the door, hasn't it, for a bit of a triumphant return, I suppose, for Lewis. It's just whether he's going to be able to do it. I mean, Andy makes the point in the chat that he did well against Chelsea. Obviously, nearly scoring very early doors against Chelsea, which would have made that a very, very enticing prospect. But yeah, I'd love to see Lewis make a comeback. And obviously, we do wish Jacko all the best with his recovery, and hope he's back with us soon. Personally, I just think he wanted Christmas off. That's all it is for me. Emily says in the chat, actually, she's being a part of the podcast, even though she is halfway around the world. She said, glass half empty at 6 a.m. It could be the jet lag. Jacko's been a solid player, but I wonder what his longest consecutive run of games has been. Lots of niggly injuries, unfortunately, and unluckily. It's a fair point. I mean, obviously, a couple of the times he was out. Was obviously okay. I was going to say the couple. Go on.
Yeah, no, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt that. No, it was just that I'd done the maths on this. And if you include the Mansfield game, which he played 53 minutes, I think he came on after the red card. So there was a red card in that game, wasn't there, in the Mansfield game? So I'm going to include that as a start, because even if he started and played 55 minutes, he actually didn't miss a game from the 23rd of August, from what I can see here, all the way through to Doncaster on the 15th of November. So, in fairness, it's well over a month and a half worth of games. There's about 10 matches in there where he started, or obviously in that game he played 53 minutes. So I'm including it as a start. So, yeah, in fairness to Jacko, I think he's been probably one of the most... this season has been probably his most reliable and consistent in a while. At the end of the day, he's been, well, not even fair to say in a while, actually, because he's been quite consistent over time. I mean, he is our leading appearance holder at the moment from players currently in the squad, I believe. And yeah, I think Jacko very much is hurt by that one season where him and Joe Walsh were seemingly trading concussions and like trading little niggly injuries, and they were never consistent enough at the time, or at least that's how it was perceived. And I don't think Jacko has ever really kind of got rid of that perception at times, and I think it's very easy to sort of look at it with the with I mean, as Emily has said herself, with kind of that glass half empty look at Jacko. Whereas in actual fact, when we do kind of look at the numbers, he has been one of our most consistent and reliable performers over a couple of years now.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that was the point that I was going to make there, is that the injury front, and obviously, caveated by being unlucky. I was always quite defensive of Jacko when people said, "Oh, he's injury prone." He wasn't injury prone. He was doing exactly what you want a central defender to do, putting his head where it's going to hurt and coming away with a concussion sometimes. When you have 2 or 3 concussions in a season, it will say more about the player than it does about the fact that he's gotten injured. I don't think they were like muscle injuries. I don't think they were impact injuries in the traditional sense. It wasn't like, oh, he's gone over on his ankle in training, or he's been tackled badly or whatever. It was literally, no, he's put his head in where he knows it's going to hurt, and he's come off worse for it, but he's done it in the line of duty. So yeah, I think having the tag of being injury prone, and I think you're right, having that sticking around is probably a little harsh on Jacko for that one. So yeah, no, right. So all the best, Jacko. Hopefully this out for a few weeks is indeed just a few weeks, and he will be back on the pitch soon enough for us. So yeah, the other thing that happened in the week, we did drop to 4th in the league following Stevenage's win at Peterborough. I think Gaz said on Sunday, that there's a few games in hand below us. If everybody wins all the games in hand, which won't happen because it never does in football, does it? It could see us slip down to 9th when it's all said and done. And in the Discord, Scunny asked the question of, we're 4th, but others have games in hand. Would you rather have points on the board or games still to play? I'll hand to you, Charlie, first for that one. So
I would normally immediately say points on the board. Like you want to be as high as you can, as early as you can. Most teams, kind of the mentality is, we're here now, can we stay here, rather than constantly feeling like you're chasing. And also, like, games in hand at this point means that they will be played on Tuesday nights in January, February. Like, they are awful matches to watch most of the time. It's the sort of results where you see a Burton win 1-0 at home against a Cardiff. Nothing against Burton, but a game where you are much more likely to see the favourite slip up. So I think you definitely want to see points on the board. However, what I will say with that, there is an argument that, especially after what we saw a couple of years ago when we were chasing the pack late on in the season and we went on that incredible unbeaten run, is there the argument that the mentality side of it, if you're chasing and can string a run together of games coming thick and fast, and you're winning so many of them a little bit later on in the season, that actually kind of helps you out, especially if you are perceived as little old Lincoln chasing the pack as the underdogs. Just a thought.
Yeah, I think my answer is pretty much the same. I mean, ultimately, it's points on the board. You want to know where you are and where you stand. But from a fan's perspective, I think it is exciting if you have, if you have games in hand over a team and it's like you have something you can strive for. My answer is points on the board, but there is an argument for, it could be really exciting if, or what happens if we get, I've just said it never happens, but, what if it does? What if it does happen? What if we do win all of our games in hand? It's like, yeah, it won't happen. But yeah, for me, it's points on the board any day of the week. And there's a couple of people in the chat saying very much the same thing. So what we'll do is we will dip into a few questions here because there are some. If you've got any questions on the live chat as well, drop them in and we'll see if we can answer them ahead of a break. But so John in the Discord asks, do you think that we are in a false position? He was saying that I watched a YouTube video earlier and the pundit said that the way that we played was equivalent to an 8th place team. It says Lincoln sitting 4th. I have no disrespect to Lincoln. 28 points from 17 games. They played well in a few matches. The Luton game was outstanding. Peterborough away game, they were very good. Northampton had one shot on target, scored it. It feels like Lincoln been the underdog. They don't like having the ball. They counter-attack. And where was it? For me, I think Lincoln are operating like an 8th or 9th place team in the division, but Lincoln only have only won one in the last 5. And the fourth time they won, they went top of the league after only winning 1 in 4. That tells you everything I think you need to know. So for me, I don't think that there is anything really that exists in terms of a false position. Like, you are only where you are because of the games that you have played. We spoke about this on Sunday and we said, if you've played, if you've played a bunch of teams that will be struggling or have gone through a difficult period, for example, the Peterborough game, like if we play Peterborough away now, we probably wouldn't win 3-0. But it's a bit of luck. But I think you can only beat what's in front of you. I mean, I can see the argument for a false position in inverted commas, but I think, when you get to halfway through the season, you've played everybody once, you'll be in a better position to judge. For what it's worth, I don't think we'll be 4th at the end of the season. I think if you're asking to predict the rest of the season and predict the final outcome of the table, I do not think we'll be in 4th position at the end of the table. But I think we're probably, we are where we are on merit. There's nothing realistically saying that we shouldn't be where we are. But it is a very, very open division at the moment. There's not a team that's running away with it. It's kind of, they keep saying it in the press conferences, anyone can beat anyone. And people, teams are beating other teams. You mentioned the Burton game there. It's just crazy at the minute. So yeah, your thoughts on being in a false position, Charlie?
So I'm going to bring out everybody's favourite table. The XG table. It's obviously flawed on many a point, but if you want to talk about false positions, chances are XG tables are going to get brought into it. In terms of the XG table, we actually sit in 7th. So technically, by that, we are in a false position. We are 3 places higher than what our XG predicts us to be in. And again, I'm not saying that the XG table is right at all, but it's the XG table. But if we're in a false position, well, so is everybody else. First of all, the only team that are in the same position in the real table as what they are in the XG table is Mansfield Town in 13th, pretty middle of the road, so you can kind of understand that. Stevenage, who are currently top of the league, are in 18th in the XG table. Cardiff, who are second, are in 12th in the XG table. Port Vale, who we play on Saturday and are currently last in the league, are currently second in the XG table. So are we in a false position, and can you use stats and such to maybe point it out? Sure, but you can also do that about every single other team in this division. And if anything, we are closer to where we should be on where we are in the XG table than most other teams in the division. I think in terms of the play style, I think it's a fair enough comment to make, because there have been games where we have not looked like a fourth place League One side.
Mm-hmm.
But there have been games where we look like a fourth place League One side. You know, the Peterborough game, the Luton game, those in particular, like that Bolton first half in particular, we were outstanding. Mm-hmm. And okay, we didn't come away with a win that day, but we defended so stoutly. Like that YouTube comment that was kind of brought up and used, they used the fact that we only had one shot on target against Northampton. It's an away game on a Tuesday night. We went 1-0 up and then we defended for our lives. Again, it's an away game on a Tuesday night against Northampton. I don't think I'd want that any other way, because we came away with the result. And you don't win games by always being pretty. And it's so easy to think, like, again, I'm going to refer back to that run that we had a couple of years ago when Skubala first sort of came in and we were chasing down those playoff positions. Some of the football we played was incredible, but there were also times in that run where we had to hold on and be resolute and be stout in our defence. And that does not look pretty. That is when, quite frankly, poo is running down your trouser leg, because you are that scared going into the last few minutes of the game. But it gets you 3 points, and that's what gets you into the position. And that's not false. Like I say, you can look at it and say that we don't look like a fourth place League One side. But who does? What does a fourth place League One side look like? We've seen so many different variations in this division over the past few years of sides that have found themselves in the playoffs. We've seen some that are, you know, Gareth Ainsworth's Wickham, for example, who got promoted out of this division. You're telling me that they looked like a side capable of winning the third tier? They didn't play sexy football. They were capable of getting promoted out of this division, but they weren't playing sexy football. But then you contrast that to a Birmingham last year, and obviously they're going to play incredible football, but obviously they're spending £15 million on a striker. But they will also have games where they win the ugly way, because you have to to get out of this division. All I'm going to say is look at Peterborough. Look at the way that they have tried to play this season when they probably didn't really have the manpower to do so. And they are currently sat in 21st place because they did that. And now they've had to change their philosophy. Let's change the full philosophy, but they have to change their manager. And that's happened. So there are obviously pros of playing beautiful football consistently. And there have been times this season where we have not been good enough for a playoff chasing side, let alone a fourth place side. And I think Skubala himself will admit to that. You know, when we played Rotherham, we played all right, yeah, but we felt annoyed coming out of that game, and rightly so. I don't really think that we were good enough. Exeter at home, we were great up until putting the ball in the back of the net. That's a game that if you watch that but didn't know the scoreline, you would say, wow, this team are going to be getting top four in League One. These are an outstanding team, and yet we lost that game 1-0. So that, if you want to go with that same logic, was a false result. It isn't, because that's the result that we get, and that's the points that we get on the board, or the lack thereof, for that game against Exeter. So yeah, I do get the point, but I also think this league is a little bit of an interesting league. You can't really predict it, and that's an exciting thing. Also, we are now 17 matches in. That's how many we've played. Obviously, we've stated we have played. I think we've played the most in the league, haven't we? Yes, we have. So we have played the most amount of games in the league, yes. But 17 games is now where you can start looking at the table. You know, they always say wait 10 games, wait 15 matches. I think you start to get to 17, you can kind of figure out where some of the players, the big players, are going to be. And we are fourth for a reason, because we have got better goal difference than fifth and worse goal difference than third.
I think it's like I say, it is all dependent on what we talked about on Sunday, which is going to be the sort of bit around little bit of luck in terms of who you play when. And yeah, you can only beat what's in front of you. So yeah, I don't think we're in a false position as such, but I don't think we'll be in fourth come the end of the season. I think that's probably a fair statement. Right. Did ask for a few questions, and there's a couple that have come in the chat. Let's have a quick look here. So Gerard asks, do you think, and this is a decent one actually, because the lad's been tearing it up. Do you think if we hadn't sold Jovan, we could possibly be top of the league and a few points clear? I know we probably wouldn't have bought Ivan, but I've been thinking if only. Now, that's an interesting one, because I think the plan was to buy Ivan anyway, but I think the Jovan sale probably made it a bit more palatable on the balance sheet. I mean, saying if we had Jovan Makama in the squad, we may be top of the league feels a bit route one as an answer, I think, because from my point of view, like, yeah, I watched the game the other night, and he is performing very, very well in a very poor Norwich side. So to have a player of that caliber still in our squad, would we be top? I don't know. Would we be probably a little bit more dynamic than we have been at points in this season? I think that's undeniable. Yeah. Thoughts on that one, Charlie?
Would we have been a better team and squad had he stayed? Yes. But I'm going to flip it around. Because would we have been a better team and squad if we'd paid £1.6 million for a player in the summer? For an attacking player in the summer? That's kind of the way you've got to look at it here, because yes, we can say that we would have been a better team, but I also think it's a bit of a given. It's a guarantee that we'd have been a better team. We've lost, we lost a player who scored a good few goals for us last season and really supported the team in the way that we played. And technically, we didn't really sign anybody off the back of the Jovan money as of yet, I don't believe. It may have changed one or two of the deals and made one or two of the deals a little bit easier, but from what I can gather, we've not dipped into that money yet. So let's see what that money can get us and see how we improve on that. Another point is, if we hadn't have sold Jovan, could we have sold Rob Street for £1 million the day before deadline day when that offer came in from Peterborough? And then again, are we sat here asking the same question, sat in fourth place, saying if we'd have had Rob Street after his low spell from Doncaster, would we currently be sat in first? So the answer to the question is, do I think we'd be in first? I don't know. That's always a bit of a stretch and exactly where we would be. Do I think we would be a better squad? Yes. But like I said, I just think that's an absolute given. Because we would have been a better squad if we'd have spent £1.6 million on a forward this summer. And we'd be saying that same thing. So a deal that we couldn't turn down at the time, and we may really dip into the market with that money, potentially even in January. Who knows?
Yeah, no, definitely so. Right, well, that's the questions that we have. There is one from Andy in the chat, which we will come on to after the break. Because we will be, of course, looking ahead to the Port Vale game. And there's a few bits around that we will discuss. So we will leave it there for the moment. And we will come back after this little ad break / hello to people on YouTube section. So see you in a sec. Cool.
Hello, YouTube. I do apologise. I think I may have dipped in or out there. Wi-Fi on my laptop just seemed to play up at one point, so I'm not sure whether you've heard everything. But
I think there was a little bit, but yeah, we got most of it. It's all good. It's all good. Right, let's see who we've got in. Andy is in. Says evening all from a misty Plymouth. John Davidson's in. Says evening. Dave Tuplin's in. Evening guys. Ian, a London imp, is in. Great news to have an unexpected Stacey West podcast on a Thursday. It's only because we were too busy last night, mate. It's nothing. You still got your weekly one. It's all good. It's all good. Mr. Barton's happy. Thursday night, much better. Yep. Carl's in. Good evening all. Multitasking tonight. Go Pack, go. Okay. I'm not the biggest fan of the NFL, but whatever lights your candle.
I do like the NFL. Is there a game tonight?
Apparently so. So Steve Jolland says, evening, are we starting with Super Jack or still using him as a super sub? We shall come on to that in the next half. Andrew Blackburn says, good evening, guys. Let's hope we get the second half performance from Saturday for the whole game. We should be good for the win. Leslie says, evening possums. Evening possums. There we go. That's all good. Emily is obviously in as well. Good evening. Well, good morning / evening from Sydney. And Leslie says, hi, Em. There you go. We're like a very inconvenient version of WhatsApp for the Rook family at the moment. That's how it's going to work. The wife says, evening to you. Dave says, evening, gents. Keith, evening, guys, and all watching. Walter's in says, evening, boys. Kev says, evening, gents. A must-win v Vale or the Vultures will be circling ready to criticise. I don't think there's a must-win at this point, but I get the sentiment. Who else is in? I think. Flossie's in, as always. She's a little bit late tonight. Let's have a look what else we have going on. Rob Staten says, this league is incredibly close this season. 1 week you're fourth, the next you can be easily 14th within a fortnight. And I can't see these fluctuations changing much as we head towards 2026. I agree 100% on that one, Rob. It is a crazy division this time out. So, right, that is good spot to come back, I think. Carl says Green Bay are at Detroit currently 17-14 at halftime to Green Bay.
That's on early.
Numbers and sports.
Yeah. I'm a Miami Dolphins fan, and my Miami Dolphins top arrived today. It's taken a month for it to arrive, but it arrived today in gym. How handy! I'm just going to have to use that as an excuse to go and pick it up, aren't I?
See, I ordered some T-shirts a while back, and I didn't think, but I had I'd not changed the default shipping address on like my Apple Pay thing, so I just went through, ordered them, and they got sent. I was like, "Oh, cool, that's fine." And then it said, "Just got a text saying your parcel's been delivered." I'm like, "No, it hasn't." And then I realised they'd sent it to my old house. Brilliant. Anyway, right, let's come back in 3, 2, 1. And we are back from a break. We've said hello to all the folks that are watching live. As always, well, I say as always, this is on a Thursday. We are normally live on a Wednesday and a Sunday at 7 p.m. Get yourself subscribed to the YouTube channel if you are not already, because you'll get notifications if you hit the little bell icon thing. And you can watch us live on Wednesdays and Sundays and occasionally Thursdays when Charlie's busy. Right. Shall we look ahead to Port Vale? He's
trying to blame me for this one, isn't he? He's really trying to blame me.
It's because it was you.
That's not the point.
You literally sent the text saying, I can't do tonight.
No, I don't think there's any proof of that. I'm just quickly going onto my WhatsApp to delete messages.
Yeah, right. So anyway, let's talk about Port Vale, because we are playing them on Saturday. They are in a tough old run of form. They have not won a league game since the 27th of September, I believe it is. And in that time, they have only scored one goal in the league. They've won one win. They've got one win at that point in the FA Cup, and that was against Malden and Tiptree. Darren Moore is under a bit of pressure. I think he's been booed off the field in the last game. The fans are getting a bit restless. It feels like it's probably starting to boil over a little bit there. And yeah, they're not in a good spot at the moment. So that inevitably means that it's going to be a very, very difficult game. And after not scoring in the league since September, we'll probably concede midway through the first half. Charlie, what do you reckon?
It's written in the stars, isn't it? Look, Port Vale are a really interesting side. Now, I mentioned the fact that in the XG table, they do find themselves top or second. I think it is, and they had no expectations of being high in the division. They had expectations of trying to climb as high in the bottom half of the table as I think they would want. But to be rock bottom at this stage is certainly not something they would have expected, would have obviously wanted, and would probably want to accept. Now, the question is are they in a false position? When you look at it, you can answer it in two ways. So they are great at creating opportunities, and they are great at limiting opportunities for their opponents. What they're not great at doing is putting the ball in the back of the net and stopping the opponents putting the ball in the back of their net. So it feels like they can do everything right in around about 75% of the pitch. But they aren't clinical, and they let teams be far too clinical against them. And that's their biggest downfall at the moment. And that is why when we sit here and, had the conversation we had 5 minutes ago around false positions and all of this, why you can't really look at it anything different than the number of points that are currently on the board, because the number of points do show that they are dead bottom of the table. So yeah, they are going to come in. I think we're going to see them in a little bit of the same way that we saw Doncaster. We're going to look at them and say, actually, they're not a bad side. They shouldn't be where they are, but they are. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to pick up another victory.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll get into Vale a little bit more. I am recording a preview for Port Vale with the reporter of BBC Radio Stoke a little bit later on this evening. So basically, as soon as the podcast's done, we'll get that done, and that will be live shortly afterwards. So I don't have his insight just yet, but they seem to be sticking to, this sort of five at the back and, playing out and trying to do the right things and all the rest of it, but it doesn't seem to be sticking for them at the moment. As you mentioned, that they're pretty much top in the XG table. Looking through some more of the stats, they are third in big chances, so they're creating the chances, they're just not finishing them. They've got 3.5 shots on target per match. They've missed 32 of their 42 big chances. Plenty of crosses, accurate crosses, an average of 6 a game into the box. It just feels like there's something not clicking there at the moment, doesn't it? And I without seeing every game week in, week out, and this is something that Chris was saying the other day, we can't pinpoint what that is. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more insight a bit later on from Phil, but it just seems to be, is this going to be a case of when they start, getting one or two, then the dam's going to break and it'll start flooding through for them. But let's talk about us on Saturday first and foremost. We had a discussion on Sunday's podcast around who do we think is going to start up top. I think if I remember correctly, and I'm more than happy to be corrected on this one, I think I said we'd push Ben House up top, and Gaz said we'd bring Rob Street in. So let's have your starting 11 for Saturday, Charlie, because I think this is where there's possibly going to be a couple of interesting choices to make, and I'll be interested to see if ours line up.
So, starting 11. George Wickens in goal, funnily enough. I think I am going to go for him. I'm going to take a bit of a risk. Right back, Tendai, again, picks himself, as we very much know. Tom Hamer, Sonny Bradley and Adam Reach for me at the minute also pick themselves. Obviously, you can look at that as much in terms of depth as you can everything else. The two midfielders, I would still keep it as McGrandles and Tom Bayliss. So the back six starting
Outfield positions.
6 outfielders and the goalkeeper remain unchanged for me from the start against Wickham. Now, in terms of that front four, because that's where it really gets interesting, isn't it? That's where we're really that's what we're really debating here. Rico Hackett is a player that I think he's underperformed a little bit this season. We had this conversation on Saturday when I was round at yours. I said I just don't think I've seen enough from Rico to give him a guaranteed starting 11 spot in the majority of games. Now, he then came on Saturday and was the answer to some of the problems. He was really, really strong, and he looked confident. He looked like he was willing to take his man on, which I think has been kind of a criticism of him at times this season, and just kind of not really making that right decision going into the final third. But he did in the second half. Now, does that earn him a spot? Not 100% sure, I'll be honest. I'm thinking that Ben House is going to... Ben House is going to start in the 10. Rob Street is going to go up top. Frankie Okoronkwo is going to start on the right and Rico on the left, or vice versa, but I think that way. Now, a couple of glaring omissions there, obviously. Not keeping James Collins in, he very much could be the one. If he does, then it's either Hackett or Okoronkwo on the left, and then it's Street on the right again, House in the 10 and Collins up top. Personally, I would probably drop Collins for this match and see kind of how a different shape up goes with Rob Street up top. I'd definitely like to see a little bit more of that. And I also haven't included Jack Moylan, which I think is going to be the big talking point of any of these lineups. Just quickly then, the reason that I haven't picked him, we know that he's only going to be playing maybe 45 minutes, maybe 60 minutes. He's not going to be able to do a full 90. You know, we have got plenty of games coming up, so we're not going to necessarily want to go all in against Port Vale. And I think if I had to choose him for a 45 minutes, it's the second half I want him in for the 45 minutes than the first. So for me, Jack Moylan on the bench coming on at half time would be how I would want to see it.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, yeah, for me, the back six is the back six. I say is pretty much the same. The first 6 positions. I think the question around Tom Bayliss, Gary did a very good article on Tom Bayliss the other day. I know I said on Sunday that it felt to me that he was maybe a little bit anonymous at times on Saturday. It was probably a bit harsh, but again, that was the eye test at the time. I absolutely love. I absolutely love Tom Bayliss. I think he's brilliant. And it's felt like he's maybe had a couple of off games, but I still think he brings a lot to the side. And you know, for what it's worth, I think I was proven very, very wrong with Gary's stats around that. Him having a couple of off games, but I'd still persist with Tom Bayliss because I think he does have a lot to bring into the squad. However, you've got even Bartholomew sat on the bench, so I'd love to see. I would love to see more of Ivan. So it's what do you do? Do you drop somebody that is performing well but is being seen to be dropping off, or do you stick with him and kind of let him prove himself, I guess? Somebody made the point that Tom Bayliss this season seems to be a little bit of the Conor McGrandles factor about him from last season, where he's doing an awful lot of work, but people aren't necessarily noticing it. So, yeah, for me, I would stick with Tom Bayliss, but I would still really like to see a little bit more of Ivan. Then in that front four, I think I said that we'd start with Ben House up top or move Rob Street across. I would stick with that, but it depends on what you want, because I think Street obviously offers a little bit more pace. Ben House offers the ability to hold up the play for a number 10 to get forward and maybe get a shot off. And with that, I think our number 10 on Saturday should be Jack Moylan. I think he should be starting. In the press conference today, Michael Skubala said in there, that he wants, he said on Sunday, play like Jack Moylan from the start. He said today that, he loves seeing Jack. He's the magic man and everything else, and he wants to be in the side. That was one of the stronger hints that he's going to potentially start. And then obviously the biggest hint that he might be starting came in the fact that Jack Moylan himself was doing the player duties. It's very rare that it is very, very rare that we see a player do the media duties and not start the game. So, for me, I think Moylan starts. I think we play Ben House there to allow him kind of talking about the NFL, a bit like a blocker. You put Ben House there and he's able to hold up the play, feed Jack Moylan and let him run through. And then out wide, I think, Rico Hackett starts on the left for me, and then it's either Frankie Okoronkwo or Eric Ring out on the right. So that's my prediction. It's pretty similar to yours. I think, for me, Ring or Okoronkwo on the right hand side. And I do just want to point something out actually. Somebody messaged me a bit earlier on and pointed me to a comment on Twitter that suggested I was maybe being a bit disingenuous with a point I raised on Sunday's pod around Eric Ring. Just a bit of a right to reply, really. I wasn't, because the topic of Eric Ring came up on social media around something that had been misreported from the transfer evening, and the question came up that, if I was there, why did I ask the question of what's happened to him? To be honest with you, I was basically saying he hasn't played since that event that we went to, and I was just wondering if he'd been injured or anything like that. There was no conspiracy. There was no further thinking behind it. I just thought, he'd done well into... had he played twice before that? Because it was the Barnsley game on the Tuesday, wasn't it, when he played? So he'd played 2 games, then we had that event, and then he's not played since. And my only question on that was, has he been injured since then, or what's happened? I didn't know. So that was the only reason I brought it up. Anyway, I'd like to see Eric coming back into the side. But if not, Frankie he's proven that he's more than good enough to do so based on his last game at home. So that's the starting 11. How do we think we're gonna perform against a team that are going to be scrapping, they're going to be fighting for everything? And when we've said before, yes, 4th in the table versus bottom of the table, on paper it's an easy win, it's this, that, it's but you get a team that are bottom of the table with their manager scrapping for everything at the minute. He's obviously, I think he's been called out by the fans. I think he's given them a bit of, not stick, but he's basically said, look, I understand the anger, but I've got to motivate the players, and then when they're motivated, you'll be motivated. I don't really see this being an easy game. I mean, they never are when we're playing bottom of the table anyway, but they're going to be fighting for everything, aren't
they? They are. It's going to be a tough game. I don't really think there's any kind of denying that fact. I don't think we're going to have masses and masses of opportunities. I don't think it's going to be one of these games where we walk out of it with 10 shots on target. I don't think, somebody said in the chat earlier, please God, let's hope it's not another Exeter. I don't see that's the way it'll go. I think it could be quite similar to the Doncaster game from a couple of weeks ago. I think we're going to have some opportunities, and I think we've just got to make sure that we take them. It's going to be down to us solely on Saturday. We can look at Port Vale as much as we like, but when we look at Port Vale, what we see is a side that if you take the opportunities that you're given and you just make sure that you don't let them take their opportunities, because they will get some. There are going to be a couple of sort of heart-in-mouth moments, because Port Vale showed that this season, that they've had those opportunities. They can get the ball and work the ball into the right areas of the pitch. But they're obviously just not doing anything with it when they get it there. So as long as we can limit them to that again, let them have possession up the pitch if they want possession up the pitch. Just make sure that it doesn't come with a really good shot on goal at the end of it. And yeah, like I say, take the opportunities that we have. Now, does that mean that we want to make sure that we've got a really clinical kind of striker on the pitch in James Collins? Maybe that's a point I probably should have considered when doing my starting 11 prediction. But yeah, it's going to be a good game. It's going to be an interesting game. I don't necessarily think it will be one for the ages, but I think if we're clinical, we could walk away 2-3-0 victors.
Fair enough. I mean, I think the other points that are being raised in the chat at the moment is we need that creativity. We need the spark to get, unlock the defense, and we need to. I think the biggest thing, we're at home on Saturday. Hopefully there'll be a decent crowd there. I think we just need to go back to what we were good at the start of the season, starting really quickly, start with purpose, start with the intent, and just start with a bit of pace. And I think it's very, very easy to pin your hopes on one player. But I think starting with Jack Moylan would raise the crowd. I think it would raise his game. And even if he is on the pitch for 45 minutes, if he's on the pitch for 45 minutes and has an absolute stormer, makes a couple of opportunities, maybe gets a goal, maybe gets an assist, whatever it is, I think we need to start brightly on Saturday. And I think, to me, that feels like the best way to do so.
Yeah, I agree. I still think that I would prefer Jack Moylan for the second 45, but we do want to really start on the front foot. I think this run of games that we've had over the past kind of month and a half, it has felt like a long period of not really that much happening in a way. Like, I don't think over the last few weeks we've really had a game that we could write home about saying, wow, this is an insane performance. And I feel like we need that. And obviously we always want it to come at home. I think on Saturday against Wickham, if we'd have completed that comeback and we scored the third goal and not them, I think that's the sort of game that we're then talking about. Like, wow, what a big turning point. This is great. We can really use this and that second half to really springboard us on. But obviously we didn't get that. And I just feel like we need a nice, solid victory by a couple of goals, a nice clean sheet to go, obviously, into the winter period that is coming up. This is our last game before winter sort of starts, if you want, on the 1st of December. And everybody, we all know what we say about the Christmas period and the winter period. So let's get a win going into it. Let's try and turn the tide and let's have kind of this period of the last few weeks of sort of kind of like anonymity with it. Like, we've had games that have passed us by, 3-0 loss to Rotherham. Yeah, okay, we won. We beat Doncaster at home, but it wasn't an emphatic victory. It was 2-1 that looked quite nervy. And to be fair, they probably deserved something out of the game. They'd have come away from that really aggrieved that they didn't. Okay, yeah, we beat Barnsley in the Pizza Cup, or whatever competition they call it nowadays. That draw with Salford in the FA Cup, draw with Bradford, and you go back to, okay, we beat Stevenage at home, and that was 1-0. That was against the league leaders at the time. Great, and well, in fact, the league leaders now as well. Great result and all of that. But we just need another one that can really springboard us into propelling us for a kind of a few matches where we can go and say, and look back at it and say, no, I'm really happy. Like, we've come into this winter period on the back of some really good results and performances. And I'm just feeling really comfortable now about where the season goes. And I'm not saying that with expectations or hopes of top 6. I'm saying that with just hopes of it being a strong season that we can be proud of at the end of the year. And of course, that all comes down to points. But I think at this stage of the season, we want to see the performances coming with it. And in fairness, there have been times in matches where we have walked away a little bit disappointed. I just hope that isn't the case on Saturday. And I hope, sorry, but I really hope that we send Port Vale fans away disappointed.
No, I absolutely agree. I think we need a statement win. Just even if it's just to kind of, I say, steady the ship. I mean, we're where we are in the table. Like, we're not we're not in crisis mode, but it feels like one bad result could start to tip things, the other way. And I think, if we have a positive performance and a really, really good result, I think that will go a long, long way to hopefully keeping things on the straight and narrow. So, but yeah, no, that look, predictions. Then we'll do a quick prediction for the game. Charlie, what are you thinking?
I'm going to go with a 2-0 victory. I think we've got the opportunity to get a clean sheet and shut them out. And I think we've got an opportunity to get a couple of goals. So, yeah, 2-0 victory. If I would love it to be 3 or more. But for that kind of big standout game, but I'll take a 2-0 victory.
I am going to go with 3. I think I'm feeling confident at the moment. And, if Jack starts, I think we'll be all right. I think he'll be, nice and attacking. I'm going to go with 3-0, I think. Yeah, probably hope more than expectation, but that'll, that's what kills you, innit? So, just a quick one as well to round off the podcast for the evening. There was a tiny little bit of transfer talk on in the press conference. Obviously, there aren't going to be any major rumors just yet. But I think Michael sort of confirmed, that he's dealing with a lot of stuff on the pitch. That's going to be fairly standard for him, and it's kind of, it's in the hands of Jez and everything, which you expect him to kind of say. But do you think there's any areas at the moment where he's looking at and going, I could do with some new toys?
Centre back, purely for like replacement and squad depth purposes. That's probably like about it. Maybe another right back as well. If we're assuming that Dexter goes back.
Yeah, so my thinking is that if Dexter does disappear, then we will be in the market for that, for another right back to cover for Tendai. So but other than that, I can't really see too many areas that we're lacking in at the minute. I think I still stand by the fact that I think this is probably the best squad that we've had in a long time, and if we can continue to perform, we should be fine. So, right, is there anything else that you wanted to discuss this week, Charlie?
No, I don't believe there is. Just everybody enjoy the game on Saturday. I am very much looking forward to it, although it does say it's going to be raining again. So great. Well, that is going to be 2 wet games out of 2 matches for me.
If anything says welcome back to Britain like that, it's that's the way it is, isn't it, Charlie? Right. Well, look, thank you ever so much for joining us, folks. It has been a pleasure as always. Do get yourself subscribed to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the podcast on whatever services you're on. Tell a mate about it. Spread the word. We are growing. We're growing all the time at the Stacey West. Get yourself subscribed on Patreon. You'll get access to the Patreon Discord where you can ask us the questions in there. We'll see them in advance. We'll put an answer together and we'll get them out on the podcast. But there's only one more thing to say, and that's up the imps.
Up the imps.